Now we have a few more minutes, so let me backtrack to fats in the diet. Fats are of two main categories, cholesterol, which we discussed, and triglycerides. But you've heard of saturated fats and unsaturated fats. They're talking about the triglyceride part. Triglycerides are what are called fatty acids. A triglyceride, a fatty acid, looks like a centipede. Its body is made out of repeating units of carbon atoms, and on its side, its legs, are hydrogen atoms. The practical observable difference between a saturated and unsaturated fat is that a saturated one is a solid, whereas the unsaturated ones are liquids. So an example of a solid is the fat on the edge of a steak, and of a liquid, a bottle of olive oil. But this word saturated begs the question, what is that? It comes from the periodic table of elements, which is arranged in columns, and you'll see that carbon is in column 4, which means that any given carbon atom must bond to 4 other things. Well, in a saturated fat, a given carbon bonds to the carbon ahead of it, the carbon behind it in the body of the centipede, and to one carbon on the left and one carbon on the right makes 4. What an unsaturated fat is that the carbon is not bonded to that many hydrogens. And consequently, since it must bond to 4 things, it'll make what's called a double bond to the carbon either ahead of it or behind it in that chain. But there's another problematic rule, that all atoms must be evenly spaced because they're surrounded by a cloud of electrons, which are all negatively charged particles, and the cloud of similarly negatively charged particles of electrons of the adjacent atom repels it. And so they configure themselves to be furthest away from each other as possible. So when you have a double bond, what it does is it creates a bend in this centipede. He's shaped like a V, and if there's multiple segments of unsaturation, like a zigzag. Now, in the same way that I described why bad cholesterol, lousy cholesterol, is bad, and envisioning these boats because they could stack and form obstructions, it's also a good way to envision why saturated fats are also deemed bad, because if they're linear like that, they can stack together like a clump of 2x4s of lumber and form an obstruction, whereas if they're bent like a safety pin, they're less likely to do so.